Hey, Strong Girls. I'm Molly Herford, sports journalist, ultra runner, cyclist, and author, and founder of Strong Girl Publishing.
And I'm Dr. Sasha Golish, executive director of Yellow Running Shoes, a researcher, engineer, elite runner, and your BFF who's breaking down the science of smashing barriers in women's sports.
Think of us as the intersection of science and culture for women and girls in sport. Each week, we'll dissect the latest headlines and cutting-edge research on female athletes.
Debunk myths about girls in sport. Talk about how hormones affect performance at every age, to the latest research in sports science around mental performance, nutrition, equipment, and so much more.
And we'll spotlight badass girls and women who are rewriting the rules of the game, sometimes literally.
Expect it to be nerdy.
And occasionally TMI.
But it will always be honest.
Whether you're a strong girl yourself or you're raising one, this show is for you. Welcome to Strong Girl Talk,
where sports science meets sisterhood.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Strong Girl Talk podcast. Here with my dear, dear friend, Sasha Golish, who is across the world from me, which means she got to celebrate my book launch 12 hours before I did. Sasha, how's it going?
It's great. I actually think I got to celebrate it 16 hours before you did, but a whole day. Yes, I did. But it's like extra celebration because I get to celebrate it today too. Like, this is the best.
It's a good feeling, yes. So for those of you who haven't been paying attention to what's going on at Strong Girl Publishing, Shred Girl's book for Lindsay and the Curse of Gemini Lakes is out now, and I feel like I had a good redemption arc for this book launch because it came on the heels of my 100-miler. That was sort of my Leadville 100 trail run redemption race. And then this book came out of my crash at Leadville. The idea for it was sort of born that day. So to get to have my 100-miler go smoothly and then have the book launch, it's been good. It's been good.
I didn't put that together. That's such a what a great story, right? And you took a failure, which we'll talk about psychological safety today, and you turned it into something to fuel you forward, not just in running, but in life. So you're amazing. You're amazing.
You're amazing. We're amazing.
We're amazing.
So yeah, shout out to Sulphur Springs Trail Race. Super, super fun. 100-miler. Yeah, great time out there. Honestly, the better part of it though was, so I won. My good friend Krista got second place, and she texted me the next day and was like, her daughter, who's like 7 or 8 years old, sent her, or she told her daughter that she finished second to me, and her daughter said to her, "It's so cool that the friends came first and second." And I mean, when we talk about what Shred Girls is all about, what Strong Girl Publishing is all about, what this podcast is all about, it is nothing if not the friendships that athletics can, and movement and, celebrating being able to, move in these really cool ways, bring us. So that was just so, so special.
What? But her daughter hasn't read your books? I was waiting for the book comment.
Oh, I mean, she has, yes, but
I was waiting for hey, the author beat you, Mom, but it's really cool that you have a friendship.
Yeah, she's like, whatever, books, fine.
Yeah, well, fine. Okay, so then let's just dive into the mountain bike, because my favorite part of the weekend was yes, the podium and the 3 Canadians, in the U23 XCC, but did you see the photo where Izzy is celebrating Ava crossing the line in the XCC?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So good. So good.
Yeah.
And that's what this is, again, all about. We love competing. We want everyone to be out there, giving it their absolute all. I was racing against my good friend Krista, and I was going to race her. There was no oh, we're going to be friends and hold hands and any of that. No, we were racing, but we are also still very good friends at the end of it.
Oh, so important. And, I mean, with your twin sister, it would just be, a little bit different crossing. Anyways, but it was, to watch Izzy, was it the week before, during the week, win her first professional road race, and then show up at the mountain bike, right? She was second in the XCC. I checked the results. I don't think she started the XCO. I don't know for sure, but I didn't see her in the results. Puck Peterse, yes. The second I saw the results, I was like, cyclocross at the top. Also, a woman who won a road race in the last few weeks.
Just wild. I mean,
Wild.
it's you would think that at some point we'd actually see cycling where it became a lot more specialized. Like 10 years ago, when Mariana Voss and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot were winning everything, we were predicting that at some point it was going to become more specialized, where the road people were going to win road races, cyclocross people would win cyclocross races. But it's been decades now, and that is still not being proven out. It's still, if you're good at cyclocross, you have that engine, you're going to be good on the road, you're going to be good on the mountain bike. Maybe it's just cyclocross, really. Like, forget mountain bike, whatever. Like, if you're good at
Yeah.
cyclocross, you're good at everything.
And you have to be, right? Like we've talked about that discipline. Go back to the episode with I'm blanking. I've been out since 3:55.
Ellen
Ellen,
Noble, yeah.
Ellen Noble. Yeah. Right. You have to be good at all of it, right? Like, and and I'm thinking about Mathieu Van Der Poel, right? Like, like let's talk about equity, like both on the men's and women's side. We're seeing these cyclocross riders like do amazing things, and PFP came from there. Voss is a multiple time world champion in cyclocross. So kind of like cross country and running, I kind of see cyclocross as like, hey, are you going to put your kid in a sport and you want to put them in cycling? Put them in cyclocross because then they have to
Yes.
play a whole bunch of different things. And the loops are fun. There's often a playground. Like I think about the homegrown kids once again, like at the Barry Cross, like literally like race, 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 playing the playground. And it wasn't about the race, and it was about the race because you went to the race, but it was really about like being in the playground with your friends before and after the race.
Exactly. Yeah. So much more play in cyclocross. So, yes, any parents out there, get your kids in cyclocross. You will not regret it. It is so fun.
Okay, I have to talk about the Safford sisters before I know our time is limited today, but so cool to see both Gabriella and Lou. So like G and little Lou, right? My former teammates running really well again. And, I know they both contemplated retirement, and G more openly, and Lou just a little bit in the tension of like, Lou is the most talented human I think I know on this planet. But they both ran 4:03. They're both loving it. I think that's what like really, I was like, I'm so glad that you found your love for it again. There's this like I looked at both of their results and I was like, I miss the smell of the rubber track. Oh, under the like hot sun. Anyways, not in a like FOMO kind of way, just a way of like that's a really cool thing and I'm so happy for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Anything else in the wide world of sports? We're really truncated this week between your travel and my just being out on a course for 17 hours instead of at home watching anything.
And I was actually trying to predict your time as I was like driving from Sydney to Melbourne. I just want to talk about the US Open very quickly. So it's underway. It's a 2 week, or not the US Open, the French Open. It's the French Open. It's a 2 week tournament over in Paris. One of the things I was like, hey, the men still close out Sunday in all of the majors and actually in all of the tournaments. I think in the 7-day tournaments, women might play Sunday just like logistically. But I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. And that's a like first ask the athletes, like, hey, women, did you want to play on the Sunday or does this schedule work better for you? Like, first and foremost, ask the athletes. But it was just something that like caught my eye in the gender equity world and the things that I think about.
I like that you mentioned the Ask the Athletes though, because I do find that sometimes in the comments, people are very quick to jump to something, being not equal or not right or whatever. And, sometimes that is absolutely the case and we should call it out. But sometimes it's actually not. Like the athletes actually prefer it the way it is for a reason. So I do think like it's always worth saying, yeah, like what do the athletes think? What do the athletes want? And lead with that rather than lead with like what maybe on paper appears to be more of the right, like the quote unquote like right answer
Yeah.
because it's not actually taking the athletes into account.
Yeah, totally. Um, well, okay, that's a like perfect segue into like our topic for today. You like listen, you introduce it. You're way better at this stuff than I am.
Queen of the segues here. So today we are talking about psychological safety, kind of specifically what it is and what it isn't. And I think this is huge because I actually had just done an article on this that I had been assigned. And I will admit, when I went into it, I really didn't have a good understanding of what it meant. And I'm glad that I did a bit of pre-research because I will say that the person I was talking to, she knew what it meant, but the ability to actually explain it is not easy, especially when
Mm-mm.
you're talking to someone who doesn't really understand it. Um, and it's quite nuanced too. Like, yes, there's a pretty like fairly simple definition. You have a fantastic one that we'll get to, but it is, you know, I feel like you could feel that sense of psychological safety one day and then it could almost be gone the next day with just like the slightest shift, and really hard to kind of get quote again quote unquote right, especially as like if you're a coach for like a whole team, what feels good for one athlete like may not be exactly right for the other. So it's a minefield. It's really
Oh, it's
the
a
starting point.
minefield. Yeah. So I went through 10 gigabytes of data when I was driving down the coast, listening to all these also like just like navigating, like the road. Anyways, it was a beautiful drive, but it was really cool to listen to it. I think, one of my favorite part about learning this weekend was that Amy C. Edmondson, who is sort of like, she didn't coin the term, and she's very open and honest about that, but she's who popularized it. She studied engineering. She's one of my people. And maybe that's why, I don't know, that's probably not why I relate to it, but I think back to the engineering classroom, and like I think about the work that I've done at U of T, and I definitely want to reach out to those I've worked with to be like, let's talk about this next year and frame it in the fact that like this actually comes from an engineer, and just that buy-in from the students. But I really wanted to start this conversation before we got into like the technical part of it. Like, what does psychological look like, feel like, smell like, taste like to you, Molly?
Oh boy. Now, psychological safety, you mean, or psychological?
Psychological safety. I said that really fast. I've been up since 3:55 a.m. people. So like I'm operating at like a little atom vibrating.
Yeah. And I've been up since not that early, but also ran 100 miles a couple days ago. So my brain is also not firing on every cylinder. Most cylinders, but not every cylinder. So to me, what I've kind of gleaned from talking to these experts, doing a bit of research into it, is really the ability to feel comfortable, not necessarily knowing the answer and being able to ask the question. Like specifically to be able to ask the question, to like not be scared of asking for what you need or what you want to know. And again, I'm coming at it from very much a coach speaking to team players because that's the like article I was working on. So that's the lens I've been looking at it, thinking about it through. So that might be a very like surface definition or surface understanding.
No, and I mean, I think about this a lot, and I thought about it a lot when I was teaching in engineering design. And so, not fair. I've spent much more time with it. But for me, it's that ability to show up authentically, but it's actually more importantly being vulnerable to give people permission to show up as their authentic selves, right? And so psychological safety is actually really about performing at your best, right? And the only way that you can do that is to show up as like your whole self. And one day we'll talk about on this podcast like good authenticity and bad authenticity. Um,
Yes.
but I also wanted, like, in my definition, I want to tease out, I don't want it to get muddled in perfectionism either, right? Like, perfectionism is like the root of toxicity and psychological safety, and actually can create spaces that are like psychologically like dangerous. And so, it is creating a space where everybody gets to be the best version of themselves. So,
While still allowing space for them to make the mistakes and learn from them
totally.
and develop from them. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's that perfectionism piece, right?
Yep.
Like being the best version of yourself is not this linear path to being better. It's failure and falling down and taking risks, right? Like Brene Brown's definition of perfectionism is like it's limiting, right? Like you can only reach this limit, but if you take those risks, you don't actually know what your capacity, your ceiling is. And so, like, such an important point. Thank you for mentioning it.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so I mean, I guess like the large question here is, how do we bring this to our kids, our teams, like, our own spaces? Do we need to start with our own psychological safety before we can kind of better understand how to show up as better coaches, parents, etc.? Like,
So I think that's a yes and. So one of the things that actually I learned again this weekend, and I guess I had forgotten, is psychological safety isn't about the individual. It isn't, it isn't. All of Amy C. Edmondson's research is really rooted in team. And so I wanted to what it is, what it isn't, but also what we get wrong. And I think one of the things that we're collectively getting wrong about psychological safety these days is the focus on the individual as opposed to the focus on the team. And I think, you know, in listening to Amy on several podcasts, I think she's really trying to bring that back to think about the team. And so when you think about your psychological state, like what it means for you to be in a psychologically safe space, and what I think about it, right? It's like first understanding who you are. I think it's really important to understand what makes you shut down and what makes you shine out. But then coming at it clear as kind, right? With an ability to communicate with people of like, you know, this is what I find challenging and not nice. Nice is toxic. Clear kindness and niceness are different. You can hold people accountable. And so I think just in terms of like setting the stage for psychological safety in terms of teams is one, we're not going to talk about it, right? It's an action, right? It's not an intention, it's an action. And so, framing it in this is about performance, but not performance in the like at an expense. This is a performance of like where we all rise together to be the best version of ourselves.
Love it. Love it. And I think also even backing up to what team means. Team can be
Hmm.
like, team doesn't just have to be like your soccer team, right? It can be, your run crew. It can be your family even. Like that's actually one of the other articles I was working on was like family as like a team. You like basically like your
Yeah.
family is your first team, really. Like for kids, your family, like your parents, if you have siblings, whoever's around you, like that's your first example of what a team looks like. For me, it's Peter and DW. It's DW gives me some great psychological safety. I'm very good at failing around him. Very
Oh,
authentic. It's great. He's
do
very
you talk to
authentic
your
around me.
dog as much as I talk to my dog about the things that I've messed up and how I might fix
Obviously.
them? Right? That's what
Obviously.
animals are for.
Yeah, yeah. The most psychologically safe of the
Yeah. But I think just I totally just forgot what I was going to say to what you said because I was so focused on dogs.
It happens. It happens. Just the
Okay.
definite, we're talking about what team
Oh,
actually
families.
means. Family,
Yeah.
etc.
So one of the other things I learned this weekend is that like it's actually more common to have, and I think we would need to tease out psychologically unsafe and psychologically dangerous, right? It's a
Mm.
spectrum. It's not a binary, right? But you know, Edmondson really talked about that most spaces aren't psychologically safe, right? It's a lot of intention, right? You have to have a strong leader. You have to, and not, I guess strong isn't the right word. You have to have an empathetic, compassionate, thoughtful leader who leads by example, but also leads in a way to empower others to be the best version of themselves. And so I think we've come to think of as psychological safety as being the expectation. But then, really going back to Misha's book, you can tell that Misha's book really made an impact on me. We also have a responsibility coming into that team to be part of the psychological safe solution, right? If we come in toxic, we shatter whatever's there.
Absolutely. Now, when we say come in toxic, though, can we give some examples maybe? Like, what does that look like?
I was actually just thinking, I was thinking about, we're going to talk about failure in another episode, but mistakes versus sabotage. And I'm just,
Oh,
yeah, like just, you can imagine my mind and like what's been going on and like the thinking while I've been walking. But almost in a way where you come in to sabotage a space where, very stereotypically we think about girls being catty with each other, where somebody probably unintentionally did something and you want to retaliate, right? Somebody made a mistake, right? A mistake is unintentional, right? And then you go when you retaliate, that's sabotage. And that, like to your point early in our conversation about it's that one thing that can shatter it, right? You can actually regain psychological safety and regain the space by apologizing, and it doesn't have to happen immediately, right? Like I think that's the other thing is people are expecting like, well, to repair it, you have to do it immediately. People need time and space to critically think and reflect upon them, like the mistake they made and the sabotage they had. And I think we don't give people teams, individual sports, work, whatever. I don't think we give people the time and space for that anymore.
yeah, yeah. And I think what you're also saying too is that psychological safety, even with the best of intentions, is going to have little ebbs and flows. Like it is
Yes.
very hard to maintain a perfectly psychologically safe team environment just forever for every person.
Well, and you basically don't want to veer into psychologically unsafe, right? Like it's kind of like the training and the ebbs and flows. Like how do you stay neutral to positive, right? And not like calling up and calling in those challenges where when it becomes psychologically unsafe, right? Like when your coach yells at you, that is a totally psychologically unsafe environment. Now, if you're running into the middle of the road and your coach yells at you, that is purely from a place of love. They don't want you to die. But when coaches are yelling on the sidelines at athletes, that is creating an incredibly psychologically unsafe space. And you're role modeling that the way that we get people to listen is that we scream at them. And I was listening to the Happiness Lab with Dave Yeager, and he wrote a book from 10 to 25. And he was talking about like, put yourself in that child's shoes, right? One, their brain is developing and they're trying out different things. But if you role model that we criticize and we shame people to make them do things, like you can then sort of have an appreciation of, gee, I wonder why that person shut down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think anyone listening to this can recall a time, in elementary school where, yeah, whether it was a parent, a teacher, a coach, whoever, yelled at you for something, especially something where it was a mistake, like an honest, just like little mistake that you made and you
Yes.
got yelled at. And like I can list like the three that have stuck with me forever. And I think I've like talked about some of them. This podcast is just my therapy. So I think I've already shared some of them. But like everyone has those moments. And I think the goal, and we've talked about this on the past podcast as well, is like to have as few of those as possible as the coach, teacher, parent. You're gonna have them. It's gonna happen. But how can we
Totally.
minimize?
But then let's also talk about the sabotage that comes in, right? And if you want to be a role model, the worst thing that you can do is basically like rise to that person's level of toxicity and yell at them, right? If somebody's sabotaging something, you got to stop and wonder for a second and say, well, what are they going through? And by all means, we have to hold people accountable. It's not dismissing the sabotage, right? Or the slight or whatever, but it's addressing it in a way first with that individual, like, hey, I just want to do a check-in. Like, what's going on? And then maybe you find out that someone's unintentional action made them feel shame, right? And then when they kind of whenever we retaliate, I don't know about you, but like it's like that is like the warm wash of shame that like you do it and then you're like, oh, the warm wash of shame that washes over me. Thank you, Brené Brown, for that, right? So then and then hold them accountable and then have a abstract conversation with the team. Hey, conflict happens. It's normal. Like normalize that conflict is normal, right? But I think one of the things that we're really getting wrong right now is when somebody comes in, even with the sabotage mindset, is that we don't handle it in a way that actually role models behavior that we want them to then use in the future.
Ooh, yes, yes. Okay, now we've talked about psychologically unsafe. Should we do a quick like when does it veer into psychologically dangerous? Just for the sake of definition here.
I mean, I don't have one, but I mean, I think we should talk about it. I think it's really important. You just did some research in this, so I'm curious what you've been thinking.
Actually, we never talked about psychologically dangerous. Like we were really just sticking to like how to create a psychologically safe environment. So we never really got into like the opposite end. It's hard when you're trying to write like a 500 word article on the concept of psychological safety, as it turns out. Very big topic. But I mean, I think like you and I can both pretty easily say like a big part of it would be just like when it's not just yelling at you in a way that's oh, my feelings are hurt in a way that's like actually damaging, could cause like harm, basically. And that's gonna have different, that's still a spectrum. Like that's gonna be different for different people. Someone with a history of eating disorders is going to respond to a, coach kind of giving like a harsh like talk about how everyone needs to be like lean and mean for regionals or whatever in a way that, for them, that's psychologically dangerous. For another athlete, it's maybe just psychologically unsafe, but they don't have any of those like issues. So it doesn't read as detrimental to them.
Okay, so I was Googling in the background. I was like, actually, somebody has a definition for this. So, formerly the UCCMS, so the Universal Code of Conduct for the Prevention of Maltreatment in Sport, which has now moved over to the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sport, CCES. Get those acronyms.
Oh boy.
So, yeah. Woo.
So many
So,
acronyms, so many acronyms, so little time.
so The definition of psychological maltreatment includes, without limitation, verbal contact, non-assaultive physical contact, conduct that denies attention or support, and or a person in authority's pattern of deliberate non-contact behavior that have the potential to cause harm. So just verbal contact, this is quite lengthy, which we won't get into, but verbally assaulting or attacking someone, including in online forms, unwarranted personal criticisms, implied or expressed body shaming, which you just spoke so well to, derogatory comments to one's identity, so think discrimination and harassment, comments that are demeaning, humiliating, belittling, intimidating, insulting or threatening, and the use of rumors or false statements about someone to diminish that person's reputation, using confidential sport or non-sport information inappropriately.
There we go. There you have it.
Right? And so, I think it is important. And what's interesting is coaches do this training. And I think we need to talk about both psychologically unsafe space with psychological maltreatment. What's sort of a neutral space? And like, how do we create environments that thrive? And so, like, my initial understanding, and this came from Kahn in 1990, and this is where Amy Edmondson has built her work, is this idea of trust and respect. And I think Adam Grant kind of popularized that conversation. And it wasn't with a conversation with Amy, it was in a different conversation. And I will, Adam Grant, argue that anything falls under trust and respect. But I think that's a great way to think about like, what is psychological safety? It's creating a space that is trustful and respectful. And when I was coaching young athletes, one, like, okay, like just funny coaching things in alpine skiing, like if you don't show them like that you trust and respect them, they are like they know exactly how to get under your nerves. But if you start from a place of I trust and respect you, and so for me that was like getting down on one knee so that we were at eye level, right? Being like, hey, I'm really excited to spend the season with you. I'm so excited to get to know you, right? Like those are really simple things, but you're building trust and respect with young athletes. And so I think that's the kind of space that we want to start from.
And I love that you're thinking about how to actually gain athletes' trust and respect versus demanding their trust and their
Yes.
respect, which I think is unfortunately the default for a lot of coaches. Coaches get mad that the athletes aren't respecting them, and you do have to ask, like, well, what have you actively done to try to earn that? Or even try to show that you're like, forget earn, show that you're worthy of it. And it is as simple as thinking out, yeah, like getting down on their level, like making that proper eye contact, like, creating that connection for sure. So I love that. And that's such a simple, like easy example for anyone who's working with like younger kids for sure.
Yeah. Well, and trust, Jim Collins, I can't remember who he wrote the original book with, but he talks about life is so much better when you just lead from a place of trusting everybody. Every so often, someone is going to shatter your trust, but that is that's not the norm, right? That's the like random moment, unless you're associated with a lot of really bad people, then I'm really sorry. You just actually need to move your environment because most of the world is filled with really good people. And I think it's that idea of giving people trust first. And I can't remember when I read it, but I just shifted my life that way. It was like, it literally was like taking the 20-ton shield off. It was just like, oh, there's a lightness to this, right? And it also then allows you to actually connect with people, right? When I trust and respect you, I, I can let you in because I don't think you're going to hurt me.
It's so interesting you said that because that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Even, with Strong Girl Publishing, we come in contact, you and I both like come in contact with so many other amazing organizations that are also doing amazing work with, girls in sport, kids in sport, all of that. And I have to admit that when I first started getting like pinged by some of these organizations, I definitely was coming at it from a bit more of like a psychologically unsafe place. And this could be, like plenty of stuff like in my background that's, led to this where I just kept assuming that, oh, these people don't actually want to like help me. They're looking for like how they can help themselves and like they, want something from me versus like, oh, maybe they do want something, but it's like they also want to support me. Like they are in touch because they want to like be part of this as well and like actually want to work together to bring, more girls into sport and bring things up. And I admit I was struggling with that. And it's something I literally just this morning, actually, I was having a meeting and I was thinking about it. I was like, you need to start just trusting that these people actually want to be part of what you're doing and are excited for you and want to help, not just like they're not going to like start doing like an, MLM like marketing scheme on you and suddenly now you're like an Avon lady.
Oh my gosh. And those are psychologically unsafe spaces, right? It was just you were being it's almost sabotage, right? Like it's coming in with like a very curated message to tell you you're not good enough and you need to have all this. I love so here and I hope this like really opens up your mind and just how much the whole world believes in what you're doing. Trust from Rachel Botsman's definition is a confident belief in the unknown, right? I have a confident belief, Molly, that you are changing the world and that you continue to change the world and that your books change the world. And when we have this confident belief in the unknown, right? It's this the ceiling just grows as to what we can do. And so we as coaches, parents, administrators, we need to give youth and everybody around us that ability to have a confident belief in the unknown.
I love it. And I'm actually starting to think that maybe, this is also a conversation of like scarcity versus abundance, right? Like psychologically
Yes.
unsafe, you're operating in scarcity. Psychological safety, you're operating in abundance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy
I did
moly.
also just read that book, just, because I'm on vacation.
I was
And I
gonna
read
say,
everything.
I've got the sample downloaded. I gotta get to it because we gotta get, yeah, you're on a reading. I'm like, oh
I'm on a
no, we're
reading.
skipping ahead. You're on a reading tear.
Yeah, well, we don't have to talk about all the books I read, but I that is such a good point. I think so often the reason we can't get to psychologically safe space, particularly in sport, is because we're operating from this place of scarcity as opposed to thinking about abundance. And I my whole thing in 2015 when I came back to track is stronger together, right? Is like that idea of abundance and working together, right? And I had a confident belief in the unknown to be able to do what I wanted to do because of the environment that I was in.
hmm Yeah, and you have a note under here, under the definition of trust, where you're talking about the like you're saying maybe respect is the triangle of diversity, inclusion, and belonging, which I absolutely love. And I think it really highlights the where you see people get, where we're seeing a whole nation get into a scarcity mindset around
Yes.
diversity and inclusion and like how that scares them because like for them that means less, right? That means scarcity for them rather than thinking like, no, bringing everyone together here, we're talking about abundance.
Well, and just so that the triangle is at 3 points where we have diversity on one corner, inclusion on one corner, and belonging. Diversity is the foundation, right? So you want to have a whole bunch of different voices at the table. You then have to figure out how your differences actually unite you as opposed to divide you. And then what the team will perform at their best when everybody has a sense of belonging. And that is like psychological safety and belonging go together. And belonging doesn't always happen. And it's utopian to think it's going to happen everywhere in every place. And actually then it erodes what true belonging is, which is a whole other topic for me. But just in terms of like, if we want to think about teams, whether it's like an individual sport or a team sport, if we want everybody on that team to be doing their best, we have to get to that place of belonging.
hmm Yes, and one thing we were talking about for the article I was working on was like creating spaces where every athlete on the team feels like they have a role within the team because often like coaches kind of stop at team leader, boom, that's it, cut, print, done. Maybe like a
Yeah.
backup team leader. But letting kids kind of have their definitions for like who they are on the team, what role they play. And we're not just talking about like who folds the towels. We're talking like, who's the cheerleader in the tough moment? Like who's the one that like is going to be there to comfort someone when they're having a hard time in like a quiet, like calming kind of way, right? Like knowing those, like having those roles, I think really you know, helps athletes sharpen what they're best at, really like hone their zone of genius, right? Like if you have like the quiet kid on the team, like maybe they are the perfect one for when someone's having a really like tough go, like the quiet one just kind of like sits next to them and is just like the soothing presence. And suddenly that quiet is actually like a superpower.
Totally. But also in terms of like introversion, extroversion, and those quiet kids are often seeing things that we don't see. And so then how do we invite them in? And we almost like over celebrate the extroverts, right? They're the ones that go out for like the leadership things, the mentorship things, etc. But that quiet person sitting there has a really different perspective that's so important. So how do you have that not loud? And that's it. Like it can't be an extroverted conversation. How do you have that quiet conversation with them and modeling how important that role is to the team? We do not in sport, in life, anywhere, do a good job with that.
100%. Yes. Oh, love it.
Want
Love it.
to go mything? Want to go some mything?
Ooh, hit me.
Okay. So I'm actually going to challenge your definition at the beginning.
Oh, let's do it.
Psychological safety is not being comfortable, right?
Mm.
It's this idea we've sort of eroded psychological safety to being nice, positive, comfortable. There are moments of comfort for sure, but it's actually being uncomfortable and being in discomfort to take the risk or being uncomfortable to ask the question, but you know that you're in a space where that you have trust and respect, so people will respond in a way that doesn't make you feel shame.
Love it. Love it. And I mean, I can actually speak to the uncomfortable part. And it's funny because you have a note from Steve Magnus in this part. So before my race on Saturday, I'm sitting in the van and about as uncomfortable as a human can be, right? Like I am a complete mess. I am, telling Peter to never let me sign up for a race ever again, telling him that I want to go home, telling him that I hate this and everything about it. And I don't want to be here. And this sucks. And it's funny because Steve Magnus actually had just done a post where he talked about, having an Olympic athlete who, like, actually, has an Olympic medal and says that for every single
Yep.
race.
Yep.
And, it's funny because I think that moment in the car with my team, DW and Peter, I was in a psychologically safe environment where
Yes.
I could feel uncomfortable and I could feel those feelings. And I knew that I could have those feelings and explore them. And, Peter was going to kick my butt out of the van to get to the start line, but in the most loving, way possible. And DW was going to cry that I was leaving in the most loving way possible. But I felt deeply psychologically safe and able to be uncomfortable, right? Like I think the psychologically unsafe thing would be if I thought Peter was going to judge me for feeling that way and was just
Yes.
not talking about it, right?
Yes. Yep. Yes. Just like, or where like nice toxic positivity was giving you the wrong affirmations. Normalizing, Molly, those feelings are, and I'm sort of think Peter did this. I think Peter
Well,
mostly
he
just let you talk, just like kind of like the dog.
well, he also literally pulled up that Steve Magnus quote, which is very funny.
Oh, good. Okay. So then he really knew, and like that's someone who really knew exactly what you needed, right? Nice would have been, oh, Molly, right? Those feelings like, oh, what's something people say? I'm like, because I don't
Well,
even know what to say. Because I'd be like, Molly, you put the training it. Like, I'm like, I have all the right things to say, but not the wrong
I mean,
things.
arguably nice could have been, okay, let's go home. Like,
Yes, 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 yes. That is thank you. That is
like,
toxic positivity. That
right?
doesn't help anybody,
Like,
right?
no, you're still a champion, even if you don't do
Yeah.
this thing that you've
Yes.
been planning for a
Yes.
year and training. Like, don't worry about it. We can go home. Like, it's no, like he knew like that would have been so much
Yes.
worse.
Well, and the stress is good, right? Like we always think like stress is bad, stress is bad, stress is bad. 100 miles, you were under a lot of stress. Your body was physically under a ton of stress, right? Kelly McGonigal did some great work, probably over a decade ago now, on why stress can be good for you. Um, Steve Magnus, I'm going back to the stress plus rest equals growth. And I think this is also this area in psychological safety that we get wrong, right? It's the rest part, right? Like we put people under stress and we expect growth. But to actually create that psychologically safe space, we actually have to give them like the cognitive, the physical, the psychological, the emotional, the social rest to actually allow that growth to happen, which only happens in a psychologically safe space.
100%. Love it. Okay,
I
myth.
really thought about this a lot. Can you
I
tell?
can tell. Myth number two, psychological safety is not a performance mindset. Do
So
tell.
there is a misconception right now that if I create a psychologically safe space, this goes back to like nice, positive, comfortable, soft. Psychologically safe space is not quotation marks soft. It actually is about it is just founded in performance. The idea is to get people performing at their best. The only way people can perform at their best, which you just did this weekend, like you are such a like great example of this, is to be in a psychologically safe space. And so I took this quote, fostering psychologically safe spaces among employees will make it hard to address weaknesses and assign accountability for achieving excellence. So if we think about psychologically neutral, unsafe spaces, we're not going to point out, hey, in this report, or, when you were passing the ball this way, I needed you to do this instead, right? Nice would be like, oh, great work. And then fixing it. Hello, my name is Sasha Golish.
I
I'm
was gonna
recovering
say,
from being
good.
nice. We all do it at times. That's clear as kind, right? Kindness is clear. What you actually need to do to help that person and to help them to learn, right, is to be like, hey, the next time, this is what I saw, and this is for this to be successful, this is what we, not I, and I think that's the crucial point. Psychological safety is about the team. This is what we need, right? And so you can all of a sudden that shift from I to we like really changes it. And now you can the next one is about calling accountability, like the next myth, as a punishment. Punishments are harmful, right? Punishment would be that report sucked, you're fired. That's a punishment, right? That's not psychologically safe. Psychologically safe is, and I love Shane Parrish's in his book that I just also read, was asking the person, one of the ways you could do it without giving any feedback was, hey, was that your best effort?
I like that. I like that.
Right? It allows you to like critically reflect and think about like what you put in to what you've given someone. It allows you to hold yourself accountable. And if someone says yes, then that's your opportunity to say, hey, here are some things that I noticed that we need to work on together because we need this report. We need to get here as a team, right? So again, it goes from I to we so that you can help that actually may have been that person's best effort. And you have to celebrate that, right? That person tried the best that they could. And now all of a sudden you have a space and a foundation for that person to learn.
Perfect. Perfect. I love it. Now, I guess maybe my counter though is you do occasionally get the kids, employees, whatever, that you say, "Is this your best effort?" And they're just like, "Yep." What do we do then?
Good question. Tell me more. Tell me what you did to get here.
Ooh,
I'd really love to know your process, right? And so it's that all when you come from a place of curiosity, and then it's person's like, well, I used ChatGPT, right? Like let's just be a kid. Interesting. Tell me about your prompts that you used in ChatGPT. Were you having a conversation with it, right? And so, all of a sudden, same with practice. Well, tell me about what you did, in the lead up to this. Well, I went and kicked the soccer ball once in the net. Oh, you did it only once? Did you have more time? And if it's no, my parents, my guardians didn't have time to take me, I'm really sorry to hear that. I know you want to practice more. How can I make it easier for you to practice in a place, right? Because we also want to make sure we don't blame a youth, a kid, for something out of their control.
that is a great point. Yeah. And I mean, I think we should link in the show notes to our episode we did where we talked about the, post competition analysis, the like in-car
Yeah.
discussions. We have so many good questions in there. And I think, all of them are applicable to this. And I think all like that's really what we were talking about in that episode is creating that sense of psychological safety, in the car on the way home from practice.
So, okay, I have to talk about this because this was like one of the things that was so important to me. And I think how I created psychologically safe spaces for athletes. The bathroom. Why is going to the bathroom like, why do we like look down upon it? When an athlete's like, I have to go to the bathroom, and you're like, oh, it's taking away from practice. There's a couple things, like one, first of all, someone might actually just have to go to the bathroom. Please let said child go to the bathroom. If a kid is going to the bathroom repeatedly, that is for you an alarm bell. That is a red flag on the play to check in with someone. Hey, I noted that you went to you took time out of practice, and don't frame it as you went to the bathroom because it's like super awkward to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about peeping and pooping. Like you did a lot of it before the 100
I
for
kind
sure.
of do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's
do
sort of
too.
one of my favorite
But
topics. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, how many times did you poop before your 100 miler? But
Look,
but
I
we
just get in the
often,
porta potty line and keep getting in the porta potty line. There is no
oh
like
God.
exiting the porta potty line. Just come out, get right back in it. That way you're ready.
But we often like weaponize the bathroom. Like, how dare you have to go to the bathroom? Why didn't you go before? Like, I sometimes have to pee 15 minutes apart, right? And like not
100%.
small. They are not small pees, just so we're clear. And I think that actually is the start of creating a psychologically unsafe space for athletes and kids, is you weaponize going to the bathroom.
That is such a great one to call out because again, that's one of those simple ones that like you can see a coach doing, not really thinking about it, not thinking anything of it, um, and it being a huge like mental burden. And I think I would say I even saw this when I was coaching cross country just for a season, and fantastic coaches doing their absolute best, but yeah, like kids would be like, "Oh, can I go get a drink or something like that?" Right? And it's like, oh no, like you have to wait till the break. And like this is, first or second day of practice. And these are kids that are clearly not like natural born cross country athletes who've been doing this since childhood, right? This is Elle and Krista from Running as Fast as We Can
Yes.
asking to
Yeah,
get a
exactly where
drink.
I went.
Yeah. And the coaches are like, oh no, like wait for like 20 minutes before we have our like first break? And it's like, you've just created an environment that feels very unsafe for that person because now they don't have like the autonomy to take care of their bodily functions, like whether or not they desperately need a drink or not, like you are telling them that they are not in control of their like bodily autonomy.
Well, and then from our previous episode, and was in a gender equity meeting this morning talking about rally report number 4, periods. If you've got someone who is going through puberty and is just getting their period for the first time, like there's a navigation there with like managing period products in sport, and we just have to come at it through a lens of empathy and compassion. And it falls on the shoulder. We have to help our male coaches understand that, like, don't ask. Just let that person go to the bathroom. Don't ask any questions. And if they come
Absolutely.
to you and they want to talk to you, also don't shut down the conversation. You have to be open to having it. We need to normalize that women carry tampons and pads and sometimes period under, and we bleed.
Exactly. And yeah, like when you get your like we've talked about this, it takes a couple years for your period to normalize. So, the girl that's running back to the bathroom, she might be terrified that she just got it and she can't tell. Like
Yeah.
I remember those days very well.
Yes, right? Or that all of a sudden you're like, oh, it wasn't that heavy this morning. And then all of a sudden it's like gunshot wound. And like you're like, okay, I have to change my tampon or my pad. Like, I cannot believe how much blood has just fallen out of me. Right.
Yeah.
And like, just normal. Just normal.
Yep, 100%. Love it. Love it. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. So how do we want to wrap this? Do we want to talk up these you have three talking points to leave people with as they are thinking about creating psychologically safe environments.
Well, as an engineer, I'm going to call it the 3M model, right? Because
Naturally,
3M created
naturally.
the Post-it. And I love me a Post-it. I think you love you a Post-it
I
too.
love me a post-it.
So 3M model, message, model, mentor, right? And message, I really want to get across that it's not just about body language. And I wrote down here the Ross Terry circle, and you're like, what is that?
I am
But
like, what
every
is that?
practice, you know, hey ladies or hey gentlemen, let's come together. And it was ladies and gentlemen. Like I just always remember that, and like these two separate circles. And everybody was included. And it was like, here's the workout today. Let's call it 20 by 400, which is a pretty standard middle distance workout. And then around the circle, here's how it changes for you. Everybody, every single person on that team mattered, right? And so it wasn't just the message that they gave, but the body language, right? I often was told to shut up, which was not inaccurate, but in it, hold me accountable. I never felt unsafe. Gaulish, shut it. Got it, Terry. Yeah. Um, Psychologically safe model, right? I think the best words that we can use as coaches, as parents, as guardians is I'm sorry and I don't know. right?
Ooh.
And we talked about this already. I'm sorry doesn't have to come immediately. It can come later, right? But you can instantly damage and then you can instantly repair psychological safety. And then the mentor part, I really thought about Judy Rege's work in this like verbal and non-verbal space, but I think we need to mentor in a way and get feedback and really think about those that are in front of us. And if we really want high performance, we have to take the feedback that is coming through verbal and nonverbal language from those in front of us to make everybody a better version of themselves.
Ooh, love it, love it, love it. And again, all of these apply whether you are the coach of your family unit, you are a coach of a youth athlete program, you are, just on a team at work, whatever the situation. Yeah, you're, running with your crew of friends. Like all of this applies. And I think it's so relevant right now. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Okay, we will include tons of links and further references or resources, etc. in the show notes. I can't even tell you how long the show notes are this week. But well worth the listens to all these extra resources, especially on psychological safety. As always, if you have questions, if you have guest ideas, definitely, head over, let us know. I'm at Molly J. Herford and at Stronger Publishing. Sasha, where can people find you?
I'm at @Gaulish Runs and at yellow underscore running underscore shoes. That sounds terrible.
Links are also in the show notes wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, rate, review, subscribe. Super, super helpful. Thank you so much. And we will catch you next week. Thanks so much for tuning into the Strong Girl Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely head over to wherever you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and of course, subscribe so you never miss another episode. And head over to stronggirlpublishing.com to check out all of the books by Strong Girl Publishing's authors, including Molly Herford, Misha Powell, and so many more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.